So what we're going to do now in part 3 is to pick up where we left off in part 2 on this video tutorial for the 960 grid system. The other two important classes that we have not discussed will be the prefix class and then the suffix class. You can see those classes right down here. Now, the idea behind the prefix and suffix classes are, if we go back to the design view in Dreamweaver, if we wanted something like, for example, similar to what we have here, where we have a grid of 5 columns followed by a grid of 7 columns, we actually wanted to just create a grid of 7 columns, and it would be pushed far to the right. We would have to indicate that within this specific class for this grid of 7. So basically what we want to do is, we don't want any content for the first 5 columns, and the 7 columns that are left get pushed far to the right, and they're so now what we want to do is go back to our code view, and we want to do something like this. We want to, let's just first copy this text from the grid of 5 columns and grid of 7 columns, and insert that text right here. And what we want to do now is, like I said, we want to get rid of the grid underscore 5, so we don't want any text or content to go in there. And if you notice, this omega tag only applies to the last child of a grid within a grid. So this we want to get rid of as well. So now we're down to something that looks like this. We have a grid underscore 7, and here's the content. So if we take a look in design view right now, we'll notice that the actual grid has been laid out to the left side of our page design here, and we actually want this to be to the far right. So what we do in this case is, for this grid underscore 7, we add the additional class of prefix. Now, the prefix class that we want to choose will have to be of the class prefix underscore 5. And the reason for that is because we want the first 5 columns to essentially hold nothing or no content. So let me just go like this in Dreamweaver. So I have sort of a space here. Now we're going to select the prefix such that it's prefix underscore 5. So the way you read this is, we have a grid of 7, and for the first 5 columns we do not want any content. So what we should get here is the 7 column grid right justified with respect to the template. So let me take a look here in design view, and here you see the content to the far right, and again we have the 7 columns. Now let me just clean up this code a bit by inserting a clear class. And so I go back to Dreamweaver and I select the clear class here, and then I insert it. Let me move this div tag down again. And now the result of adding this clear class, and let me just delete some text inside the clear class. And now what we get is, we get our 7 columns. We get it to the far right of the container underscore 12. And we notice that for the first 5 columns, we have nothing in terms of any placement for any type of content. So what we've done is we've used the grid tag or the grid class in combination with a prefix class. So now the other thing left is the suffix class. So what we can do here is if we copy all this text here, we can then basically insert it into our document, and what we get now is actually a duplication of what we just did in the previous example or row. So going back to code view, what we want to do is we want to have this grid of 7 actually be very far left justified. So it will start in the first column. So in that case, what we want to do is talk about space to the right of the 7 columns, and the way we do that is with the suffix class. So I'm just going to put a space here for Dreamweaver, and now I get all my classes, and I'm going to actually find the suffix class. Now, because we want the full width of the remaining 5 columns to contain nothing, we select suffix underscore 5. So what we should get would be 7 columns where content could go, and the remaining 5 columns on the same row should not exist or will never contain anything. So let's take a look at that in design view, and here you go. The 7 columns are left justified, and they run basically across at least half the page, and then on the right 5 columns that are left, there's actually no content. So the next thing that we want to do is, let's suppose we want to take this 7 column grid and move it over to the right a bit. Specifically, we want the first 2 columns to contain nothing, and then what would happen is the final 3 would not contain anything either. So we'll go back into the code view, and what's going to happen here is, let me just show you what the tag would look like. We want a grid of 7 columns, so that's the grid underscore 7. And then what we want is a prefix of 2 columns. So that means nothing will be in columns 1 and 2. So we'll select that. And then to make this correct, we need to set the rest of this div tag to be the suffix of 3. So let me just go down and find the suffix 3. So we have grid underscore 7, prefix underscore 2, suffix underscore 3. So what is going to happen now is that grid of 7 columns will be shifted over by 2 columns. So let's take a look at that. And now you can see that, well, that's exactly what happened. The first 2 columns do not contain anything. The final 3 columns, they do not contain anything either. So now as a final example, let's suppose we're going to have a footer for our web page. So we're going to go back into code view. We'll make the space right here, and we want the footer to span the full 12 columns. So what we're going to do is grab our div tag creation tool here, and we're going to set the class to grid underscore 12. and we'll get something like this. And now, for example, we could format that text to paragraph. And now, one more thing we want to do here. First of all, we want to move this div tag down. That's the div that applies to the container itself. But what we want to do here is we want to insert a clear class. So we're going to go back to our div tag creation tool, and we're going to select clear for the class. Okay, so now we want to wipe that text out. We just want that div tag for the clear class, and now we take a look at what we have. Then you can see down here, this in here would be the region for your footer. So there you have it. This has been a three-part tutorial on the usage of the 960 grid system, and I covered most of the important aspects of this particular kind of layout. You know, we use the 960 fixed width grid. We learned about the classes that make up the grid, and that would be the container, grid, alpha, omega, prefix, suffix classes. And the other two classes that I did not really mention too much of would be the push and pull classes. Of course, you can go back to the 960.gs website and gain more insight into how you can actually create your web pages based on this particular system. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed.